earlier in the show, we were talking to the Technology Secretary, Michelle Donovan, about the new online safety bill. Tech expert Dan Sodergren is here to tell us his thoughts and share some tips on what you can do to keep your kids safe online. So we've been waiting for this bill for years, haven't we, to come in?
It's been a very long time.
The idea being that it will hopefully make everyone safer online, particularly children.
And you've got to applaud it for that. Child safety is extremely important, especially in this new world of things like artificial intelligence and disinformation and all these things. However, the bill is also very, very large, and lots of other things that the Minister didn't mention, like the potential end to end-to-end encryption, which is what they're trying to bring in. And so large companies like Apple and WhatsApp and other people would actually like to leave the UK if that becomes a law. It's a kind of similar law that you'd have in places like China and Russia. So we've got to be really careful if we don't can everyone think of the children? We can bring in these other laws as well. But you've got to applaud the idea behind it. However, as you rightly said, how are they going to make it work? How are they going to employ to make sure these rules can actually be applied to? One of the things would be using artificial intelligence. So I can't, as a technologist, come on TV and not talk about the amazing effect of artificial intelligence and what it can do, but that could definitely help with moderation and to help children online.
Yes, because one of the things I mentioned earlier was that the way it works at the minute, you have moderators who are people who are basically paid to sit and watch.
See all this horrible information.
See all this horrible stuff out there and work out what should be taken down or whatever else. But there's just there's so much information and not enough time.
And that's the beauty of artificial intelligence, is if you use artificial intelligence to do this, it means that the companies have no excuse after that, because they'd have AI moderators to do that. And I think that's most probably one of the best things. But as I say, taking off my technologist hat, putting on the dad hat, it's a great idea, it's great intentions, but of course the road to hell is paved with good intentions sometimes.
Yes, and with your dad and your technology hat on, it's two hats. Should we talk about keeping kids safe online then, and just in terms of what people can do now while we're waiting for these laws to be enforced in terms of parental controls?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You've got to be talking to your young people more. We've got to have this kind of digital green cost code. We've got to be talking to each other a lot more than perhaps people are. Parents aren't always educated around this kind of thing. But things like sharing personal information, sharing photos, they've got to be aware that this is potentially quite dangerous. Obviously, the positive effect of the internet and social media is huge, but also there is always a downside as well. But there's lots of things you can do. You can use technology to help you do this, and that's a couple of things I'll be talking about next.
Yeah, so give us some of these things that you can use. You've got some demos to show us, haven't you?
Yeah, there's things you can use. You can use on Android. You can use something called Google Family View. That's something you can download, and that's a really interesting and easy tool that you can use. So you can do it on different devices. So you can become the dad of this whole hub, or the mum of this whole hub, and the adult. So you can then restrict what the young person can see on their device. Not only what they can search, but also different apps they can download and all sorts of things as well. So Google Family View is a really, really powerful tool that you can use, and it's completely free as well. So it's already on your phone. So Android's already got that. Apple, of course, have also got their own version. So you can do Apple Screen Time as an individual, but you can also do Apple Family View as well. And so you can go into the settings of your Apple phone, and you can set it up as a family member, as the leader of the family, the parent, and you can put different devices on there. And as soon as you do, of course, we've blanked out all the other information here, you can set up their screen time, what they're looking at, what they're doing, and how much they're doing it by, but also restrictions on age as well. So it's not just time, it's age, and when they can put away their phones as well, which is a big one in my household. But there you go, that's the thing. So they can look at social, make sure they don't have Snapchat and these other things they're not going to have until they're 13 plus. And the other thing is just make sure they don't know your passcode, because of course they can then change it.
Yes, that's a very good point. When they cheekily ask you for it and you're unaware, and you give them access to everything.
Yeah,
I also really like this tip that you're going to tell us about, which is about playing the online games yourself. Explain what you mean about this.
This is something that I found during lockdown and other things with my daughter as well. So play the things like we have Roblox and the thousands of different games. Now, you might presume that they're all safe, but actually not all of them are. Yeah. So again, this is the reason why the law should be there. And gaming is slightly different, but you can play the games with them and be involved in the process, not only to see if the game's suitable, but also see what they're doing on the game. Yeah. Are they being nice, but also are they talking to strangers? Are they talking badly in chat, etc.? This might feel a bit bad, but actually it's another nice way to get to know your child, what they're doing online, and get to know them digitally. You can play there's loads of cool games you can play together. They're not always going against each other. So I really love the idea of playing with them and being there in the environment with them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's like homework for the parents.
It's exactly that, yeah.
Play Minecraft and play everything else that you've got. What if you've got a child who's under 13, which is obviously the age at which you're allowed a social media account is over 13. What if you've got a kid who is desperately begging you for a social media account?
I think this is where, and I've had this in my own life, and yes, they will beg and the rest of it. But remember, children would also beg that they ate chips every day, or that they did, they ate sugar all the time, or even worse, that they started smoking because their friends were smoking. Again, we've got to bring in some kind of parental responsibility here and say, actually, but you've got to explain it to them. This is why you shouldn't be able to do this. This is because you might see things that are not very pleasant. This is because you might become more addicted to it. This is why we have these rules. Exactly the same as having rules if you're watching an 18 film and they're only 8. You'd have to come in and kind of say, you can't just blame the government on this one and blame the tech companies. We've got to take some control ourselves. But of course, the other thing you can do, say to them, look, if you're wanting to use social media, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe they want to be more entertained. Well, you could use something like YouTube, but you could use YouTube, but the family or the kids version of that, so it's more friendly for young people. So again, sometimes you've just got to think, what else could we be doing with them, not just them doing social media stuff. There's other things they could do. You don't always have to use social media to share photos, etc., in a much safer environment.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Dan, thank you very much for that. That's lovely. Right, we're going to head over to the kitchen now. Freddie, remind